we go, brilliant. Well, good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to today's WEConnect International webinar. My name is Maggie Berry. I'm the Executive Director for WEConnect International in Europe, and I'm delighted that you've joined us for today's webinar, Leading in the New Normal. Our presenter today is Tracey. She is the owner of Dunelm Business Consultants, a WEConnect International certified women's business enterprise, and they offer coaching, specialist leadership training, development programs, including programs for women, and programs that are designed to develop high growth businesses. Today, Karen is going to be sharing advice with us about how to help you to become better at managing your workload, your communications, and your own learning. And she's also going to be challenging our thinking about how we're going to effectively function in whatever our new normal is going to be looking like in the coming months. To keep background noise to minimum, if I could just ask everybody to keep themselves on mute, please do use the chat functionality if you've got any questions, and there will be time for questions at the end. Karen's probably going to talk for about 40 to 45 minutes. We are recording the session, so you will be able to listen back to it again. So thank you very much for joining. And Karen, over to you. Thank you so much for presenting for us today. The floor is yours. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Maggie. And when everyone was joining today, it was just so fantastic, wasn't it, to hear Maggie welcoming everybody. Welcome from Switzerland, welcome from Indonesia. It's a truly global audience today, Maggie. So I'm so thrilled to be here today, to be speaking to you. And the world does definitely feel like a smaller place, doesn't it? It really does. So thank you very much. And I'm so looking forward to talking to you all today, and to also obviously to help you, challenge your own thinking, but also hear from you. I'd like it to be as interactive as it possibly can as we move into this session and start to talk about the new normal. And I'll be talking about some things about you and about you as leaders. In my own business as a leadership specialist, that's my own specialism, and that's the core of my work. But I am going to be sharing with you some sort of wider perspectives about your business. And what's interesting about this, I've got a colleague who says to me, Karen, things don't change every day. They change every hour. And so actually I can see people nodding. Actually, it changed every minute sometimes. But actually, I think, so therefore, what I would have been saying to you yesterday actually is different today. And certainly the slides I sent Maggie to have a look at a couple of weeks ago when I first started to prepare are different. And I think that's indicative of where we are and what we're trying to do. So anyway, let's move forward. I wish I could see you all because of the way my screen's set up. I can only see 2 or 3 of you, but I wish I could see you all, but there you are. That's what we've got. That's what we've got. Right, okay. So please do use the chat for questions, or if you'd like to wait for Q&A, that's absolutely fine. I've got a bit of a Q&A at the end. I'll try, if you see me look at my watch, that's only because I'm keeping an eye on time, so don't think I'm being ignorant when I'm doing that. And obviously do raise your hand, and I'm quite happy for you to butt in, Maggie, if somebody raises the hand and wants to ask a particular question. I believe you can do that by clicking into the participants tab, and there's a raise hand button. So either do that or just do that. I'm sure Maggie's looking at all of you, and you can all see each other if you've got your video on. I'm perfectly happy for you to join in. Please do that. If you want to make it interactive, that's absolutely fine. The only other sort of domestic thing is, I think before some of you joined here, I have got a dog in the house, and he did have a barking fit at some point, so I'm just hoping that doesn't happen. So if it does, apologies. Apologies in advance. Okay, so let's start to move forward. So the exciting stuff exists when we're out of our comfort zone. Well, I don't know anyone who hasn't been out of their comfort zone in the last 12 weeks. And it's really a mindset as to whether being out of that comfort zone is an opportunity or a nightmare. And I've actually spoken to people in both of those camps. But the exciting stuff exists where we see being out of that comfort zone as an opportunity. Now, some of the things I'm going to be sharing with you today, you think, well, yeah, I know that, or yeah, I'm aware of that. Well, that's great. It's always good to retouch. But also, a lot of you will have people that you're looking after, that you're responsible for. And it's our job to ensure that we share that. And we're looking after people in a very, very difficult time. So these messages that we either know or we're remembering, we have to not fall into the trap of thinking everybody else around us knows that. And so, you know, I do encourage you to share that and to talk to your own teams about that. And it is time to reflect during these times. It's time to develop, and it's time to reinvent ourselves. One of the things that Maggie did as part of the preparation for this, some of you will have fielding put some questions out to me, or put some comments, or asked for some things that you wanted to comment on, and that came up a lot in your comments that you filled in, that, you know, you really felt that you needed to develop and reinvent yourselves to survive this. And yeah, we do, but it's an opportunity, not a nightmare, and it can be a really great and exciting thing, not only for us, but for the people that we're responsible for and that are around us. And this came up a lot as well, Maggie, in the comments and the questions. And we do need to be the best version of ourselves. It's a bit of a cliche, isn't it? But it just being half-baked at this and half-baked as leaders is not enough during these testing times. We've really got to dig deep and take that opportunity of this comfort zone, or being out of that comfort zone. I think we're on a bit of a bell curve. I'll come to that in a little while in terms of what I've observed about how people have felt and are feeling during this time. So I'm going to come. I'm going to come back to that. But there's definitely been a shift for me in terms of people's perspectives and people's response as to how they felt about being in this situation. So I want to say a little bit more about comfort zone. And when I was thinking about this and preparing this, and when I talk about comfort zone, I always talk about one of my colleagues. That's not me, by the way, climbing Everest, before anybody thinks that. And this is one of my close connections, a chap called Mark Wood. You can see his name on there on the pictures. These are his photographs. And Mark is a solar explorer, a solo polar explorer, and he's also been on some Everest expeditions. And I met Mark when he came to talk to a group of people that I was coaching on a leadership program, and he came to talk about some of his insights about being in these sort of dire situations or very dangerous situations, and what we can learn from those situations as leaders. And he was an amazing individual. And when I was thinking about, you know, what we're all going through, I think that comfort zone is one end of a spectrum. I'll talk to you about what I think about the other end of it in a moment. But if you think about comfort zone being a spectrum, this, you know, going over a ladder, over a crevasse, is the far end, isn't it? It's the top end of being out of your comfort zone. You couldn't be, to me, in my mind anyway, you couldn't be in any more of a nightmare. But if that is the case, the more opportunities there are. And there are three things that we really get out of being in our comfort zone. It's a big fear-busting opportunity. It's a big learning opportunity. And that is where all the opportunities are to create new connections, meet new people, and find new opportunities. But if you think about what Mark was talking about here, when he was talking to us about and showing us these pictures of when he went through, you know, these very dangerous situations, the level of learning, the level of fear busting was at the highest level. Now, we're not there, of course, but if it's a sliding scale, if you think about, you know, what's happened to us and where we've come from, there's been some big opportunities, and the people that have seen it as an opportunity are the ones that are moving forward better. So I thought, well, you know, I haven't got any photos like that. So I went through my own camera roll and I thought, okay, what photos have I got in my camera roll was I out of my comfort zone? And they're all very, very different photos. They weren't during COVID, by the way. I've been social distancing, but you can all look through your camera roll, and you can all find photos where, you know, you were in a situation where you felt fear, or you were meeting new connections that were giving you big opportunities, or you were learning a lot. And they were just a few that I found. So, you know, there's the big fear buster one there was when I walked over the O2 in London. You can see me on the right hand side there. And the ones in the middle, I'm also the honorary consul to Latvia, and they were when I met the president and the ambassador. Some big fear moments, some imposter syndrome moments, but some brilliant connections that enabled me to develop some opportunities for the job that I was doing. So, you know, it's not just COVID actually where we've been faced with this, but what COVID has done, it's magnified it. And what I was saying to someone the other day is, often when you're out of your comfort zone, it's happening to you on your own. But what COVID has done, it has created a situation where it's not just you, or not just your business, or not just your company, it's the whole planet. And that's why it's magnified the whole thing. And that's why it's so important that we pay so much attention to this. So just a quick one there. And it was interesting when someone said to me, you know, I want to think about this and be a better version of myself. I actually found a slide where I'd got that when I was speaking at International Women's Day at a company. That's a photo of that there. So just to recap, it's a fear. It helps you if you're out of your comfort zone and you are busting fear, and that is a very positive thing for you as an individual. You have a big opportunity to learn. And you have some big learning opportunities. I don't know about you, but since I have been within this situation over the last 12 weeks, my learning curve has rocketed. And we not only have a responsibility to take up those opportunities, we have a responsibility to ensure that those around us are taking those up as well, because not everybody has the same mindset as you. As the leader of the organisation, or the leader of the department, or the leader of the team. But also it's a very fulfilling thing if we've navigated through this. And you know, often people come to me and talk to me about going into schools to develop confidence in kids. Well, the only way you develop confidence in anyone is to get them out of their comfort zone. So it's a big confidence building opportunity as well. And there we go. It's also in order to be a role model, we should not only be practicing this, we should be encouraging this for all of our people that are around us. Now, I'm going to talk about network later on. I'm going to talk to you about a model that I use that help you think and visualize your network and how you can manage your network. But it's being here where we are is an opportunity to re-engage that network, because the network that we had at the beginning of this is not going to be the same network that we have at the end of it. It has to change as we're all changing, as we're all learning, as we're all developing. Dare I use the word pivot? And if everybody's using the word pivot, you know, our network is going to be different, and we need to ensure that not only we have a visual of that, but so do the people around of us. There's that opportunities one there. Now, I also had a question from somebody that says, give me 3 words to embrace the new normal. Well, that was really that really got me thinking, and it reminded me of some learning that I did myself last week. I went on a Zoom call last week, and the speaker was a lady called Linda Applegate. She's from Harvard Business School, and I thought, you know, I'm not going to talk around this. I'm just going to share what she said, and there were 3 elements to what Linda said. And what she said was, in the new normal, the first thing we have to do is we have to stabilize within this. Somebody got a hand up. I saw somebody waving. No, maybe they were just stretching. Just butt in, Maggie, if you can see that. And what Linda said was, we should be questioning ourselves on how we must be protecting and improving our core business. And the question is, how can you protect that? How can you improve that? And how can you restart? So your core business is a starting point, and is part of this stabilization thing. But the narrative, there it is, should be opportunity driven, because we're not going back. We're not going back to what we did before. Now, in my own business, there's going to be some things that I'm going to be doing for my clients that I used to doing before, but we're going to be doing it in a different way. And we have to protect that core business and improve that core business. The majority of my coaching, for example, was face-to-face. That's not going to be the case going forward. I have to protect that business, but I also have to develop it and change it for what my clients are going to be wanting going forward. The next thing she talked about was acceleration. And what she said was finding people and ways and processes that allow you to adapt quickly. Now, there's 3 elements of that: people, ways, and processes. And we're getting some pushback, aren't we, in some areas? We're finding some challenges with some people, whether they are external stakeholders or whether they are internal teams, and getting our teams to understand that acceleration, especially when they feel uneasy, is part of the moving forward process to embrace this new normal. I love what Linda said. She said, you execute a strategy, not a vision. And we've got to, and through our brilliant leadership communication, we've got to ensure that what our vision is translated into communicating a strategy in terms of what they're actually going to do to our workforce. And some of the conversations I've been having, especially now, is around when do I bring people off furlough? When do I start telling them about these new ideas? When do I kick these new ideas off? Well, your people should be part of that narrative. That's going to make that's going to show you as a better, more inclusive, more collaborative leader. You're not going to have all the answers, which leads us to our 3rd thing that she said. And what she talked about here was, you can only do this if you're only truly connected to your network. So I hope you've all been keeping in contact with your network whilst we have been in lockdown. However, it's not too late. Sometimes we haven't had the ability to connect with some of them, but certainly now it's time to really, really, in my head and in my mind, open up the channels of communication, start to have these conversations about how you adapt, about how they're adapting, and how you can collaborate and work together so that there's synergies between the 2 of them. It's the only way you get to understand the pain and the opportunities. So I just wanted to share those with you, because I thought, you know, she really encapsulated it in a really, really brilliant way. Maggie, I can see at the side of my peripheral vision some chat and questions. Is there any burning questions at any point here that you think you want to put in?
I'll have a wee look and just check.
Just
quite a lot of. I will just watch, and I think when you're moving your notes, just watch it doesn't go too near the mic. And you can just comment on questions. Don't worry, I'm keeping an eye.
Okay, wonderful. Okay. Right. Beautiful. Okay. So as we're moving through this, we've got some real personal challenges, haven't we, as individuals and as leaders? We're starting to question a lot of things. We're starting to think about, you know, some of the things you asked me about, you know, reinventing ourselves, being the best version of ourselves, you know, being the right leader in the new world. And you've got to believe that you can do this, and you know, self-belief is a mindset. That I really like this image. It's often an image I use when I talk about imposter syndrome. I'm sure some of you will have heard of imposter syndrome, and you know, it's that phenomenon where you're questioning yourself, you know, I don't think I've really got the skill to run this business. I don't think I'm the best person to do this. I don't think I'm the best person, to move this forward. And we start to really, it's a confidence thing. It's a confidence thing in ourselves. And that's all about perception and reality. And often they're very two things. Often our perception is that is where we are, and that we are not worthy, or we're not the best people to do it. Often the reality is something different, and your thinking is that you come across, or you have this type of approach. Someone's reality is so much better than that. And it's sometimes when we walk into a room, when we're networking, we think often when I'm working with women, especially when they trying to work in on their networking approach, and they say, everybody seems to know each other, everybody seems to know what the narrative is, everyone seems to be confident, they feel just like you do. That's your perception. The reality is that's what's going through their mind, and they're looking at you and thinking exactly the same. And it's something that we really need to think about in this process, isn't it? As we're changing and developing our businesses, and we're trying new things, and we're thinking about what we're going to do moving forward. If we don't have self-belief and confidence, then that's going to affect our performance. And sometimes we can be our own worst enemy. And this phenomenon exists a lot when people are out of their comfort zone. So they are linked. We should do well to remember that we're all questioning ourselves and our decisions. We're all learning, and we all feel unsure sometimes. And if we're pivoting, we are questioning ourselves, our businesses, and our ideas, and that's right. It might not feel right, but it is right. This is why connecting with our networks is so important. As I say, I'm going to come to that in a moment. Just conscious of the time. Okay. If we're at one end of a spectrum, make sure you're at the right end. And to my mind, when we're influencing, we can be at one end of a spectrum, or somewhere in the middle. And what I mean by that is, on the odd occasion, well, actually quite regularly, I'll do some broadcasts. I call them car casts. It's not car cast karaoke, for those of you in the UK that might have seen that, but they're just 2-minute broadcasts of some thinking that I want to share. And the reason I'm telling you about that is I did one a couple of weeks ago on ego, and it had more interest and more shares and more comments than anything in terms of the leadership. The leadership community that I get engaged with. And that spectrum, at the one end is ego, at the other end is something else. I'm going to tell you what that is in a minute. And there's obviously a middle ground. But when we need to influence, and that's what we need to do, some people say to me as a leadership specialist, what's the two most important things that leaders need to do? 2 things: unlock potential and influence. And if we need to influence in this place where we are in right now, if our ego is out of control, and if we've not got that in check, so what does somebody look like when their ego's out of control? Well, they often bring the conversation back to them. They're only really interested in talking about what they need to talk about. They're not always happy for others' achievements. They might say that they're happy, but they might not smile with their eyes. They're not very keen on people challenging them with and their ideas. They're not very keen on that. They get a bit defensive. So somebody who's exhibiting all of that and just that, their ego's out of control. However, we've all got a bit of an ego, and some of those things, we all will have components where we exhibit sometimes. But the people where it's out of control are at the far end of the spectrum. They're not influencers. Being in tell, I use that term a lot in my work. Not listening, not engaging and opening up a narrative with your teams is going to leave you in a very isolated way. Often when people say to me, I feel so isolated, nobody tells me anything, you know, nobody shares anything, you know, I have to do everything on my own. Sometimes that's as a result of some of the behaviours they are exhibiting. They are actually putting that barrier up without even knowing about it. As I say, we all have some of those elements. So what is at the other end of the spectrum? If ego is at one end, what's at the other end of the spectrum? Charisma. In my head, ego is at one end and charisma in the others. There are some very, very egotistical people. There are some very, very charismatic people, and there are some people in the middle that have got a bit of both. And in my work, I see people where we talk about this a lot, either because their ego is out of control and that's what's causing their problems, or I have actually, you know, quite a lot of work with some clients where we help develop their charisma index. That is possible. It's not just something you're born with, believe it or not. There are components to people, to charisma, and a charismatic person will be doing things that build on that index. And it's not just about how someone looks, it's around all these things here. You know, their genuineness, their authenticity. Their charismatic people always listen to others. They remember the important things. They verbalize things properly. Gosh, if there was one thing that's so important right now in terms of getting our teams on board with this pivot, it's this. We have to give clarity and we have to be clear about what our vision is in order to come up with the strategy. Because as Linda Applegate says, that's where the power is, in the strategy. Persuasiveness, influencing, and of course, respect. So I'm moving some things around on my screen as I'm sharing them, so I want to make sure I've shared that. So we're only going to influence our workforce if we're using these approaches. There's nothing in there that can't be worked on. There really isn't, you know. And if you think about a charismatic person in your head, and whether they're a celebrity or whether they're just somebody you've worked for, a brilliant boss, a role model, a mentor, or whatever, and you think about how they behaved and how they acted, I would be very, very surprised if these weren't sort of indicators, or these weren't some of the approaches that they were taking. So in terms of what we can actually do to get through this, it is about looking at ourselves. It is about looking at our leadership style. And some people may say to me, well, I haven't got a team. I'm actually a small business. I'm on my own. I don't have a big business. I don't have a big team. But we still need to influence. We still need to influence our colleagues. We still need to influence our stakeholders. We still need to influence and engage and build up a great narrative with our customers. Being on the right end of the spectrum is so, so important. Which brings me, Maggie, is there anything burning before I go to my next point?
No, I'm going to come to them at the end. There's just a few comments of things, but no burning questions just now, thanks.
Wonderful. Okay. All right. So I talked there, my last sort of comments and remarks were around network and around our community, whether that's our internal community, our internal teams, or our stakeholders and our customers and our external community. And our network, if somebody says to me that they're setting up a business, or they're changing their business, or maybe they're in the corporate world and they're an ops manager and they're going for their first board position. What we're talking about is looking to the future. Their network is the conversation. Their network is the conversation I want to have with them, because who is around them, and therefore who they have an ability to influence, is key. And often that network is not something that people actually get to a point where they visualize. And if we can't visualize something and see it, we can't then make actions about how we might improve it. So I came up with a model. and it's called a network map. It's a very, very simple model. You could create it with a pen and an A4 pad. You can do that. If you can draw a circle, you can create a network map. And here's an example of it. Oh, hang on, Maggie. There we go. So what I want you to think about is you, and you're in the middle of your network. And anybody can draw a network map. You could draw a network map if you've just come out of high school and you're going into university. You could draw this. And I want you to visualize yourself in the middle. But let's talk about what we're here to do. Let's talk about business, and let's talk about us moving from where we were pre-COVID to where we're going. And you will have a network around you. But what I want you to think about is re-looking at that and redrawing that. And I want you to think about your inner circle, your close network, and your outer network. Now, I'm not going to stipulate what that means. It's deliberately subjective. And when I talk about this to people, when they go away and fill it in, they all come back different. That's okay. That's okay. It's a very personal thing. So I won't say, oh, your inner network is people who are here. I don't do that. You stipulate who your inner network is. You stipulate who is close. You stipulate outside. And then what I get people to do is, and these are just examples. These are just examples of what I might talk about. I ask people to segment that network. So you might have suppliers, or you might have industry, you might have peers, you might have customer segment A and B, you might have coaches, mentors, or suppliers. There's no right or wrong. Every time I see a network come back to me, it's different. Okay, but it's a very, very, very powerful tool. And when people have come up with those segments, and if you think about it, where we were, you might have some segments. Where you think you want to go, you might think, well, I need to engage them, so they need to be a new segment. Or actually, I need to lose a segment. And then when you've thought about those segments of your network, I get you to put inside of that who are in those segments. Now, my example here is used initials. So they're just initials, so, you know, John Abbott, Burt Reynolds, whoever. but you could use this a different way. In customers, you could have customers. You could have whatever you want. Now, I'm sure now your mind is starting to think. If it's starting to think outside of how I've presented it, that's okay, because we've all got a different picture of our network. Now, once we have mapped our segments and populated those segments, we can then start to make some decisions. We might say, okay, I've got some gaps. I've got a segment here that's got nobody in. So I need to do some action to bring them into that. You might say, I've got here in segment A, this is going to be a big new world for me. And they, in my head, are in my outer network. So I need to make some decisions to bring those forward. You might have some people that are close to you that you might make a decision that you need to move them back. Now, I'm not talking about firing everyone, phoning somebody up and saying, I don't want anything more to do with you. But you may make a conscious decision to change your interaction with them so that you are working more with one set of people and less with others. When I'm doing individual network maps, I mentioned it, sometimes I'm working with people who are going from an operational leadership position to a strategic leadership position. And it's a very, very personal thing. And there's very personal people that they've mapped around them. Sometimes we work out that there's people in their inner circle that are toxic, that are not helping them. You may have people in your business that are toxic. You may have customers that are toxic. You may have stakeholders that are not helping you. And this might be the opportunity for you to make the decision that we need to bring different people close, some people closer, and push different people back. So there's some real opportunities for here. Now, that is just a PowerPoint slide, but as you can see, it's a very, very simple concept. When I've seen people approach that and do it, often they've done some amazing things with it and changed it and developed it. Don't be frightened to do that. But if you have a leadership team And you are talking about developing your business, developing your products, developing your services. Your network is going to be different. And the risk is there's a different perception or reality to what that network is or should look like. And if you're not all on the same page with it, then you won't accelerate. Remember that second stage, you won't accelerate to the next stage to get to where you want to be going. Okay, I'm going to move away from that. Any burning questions there, Maggie? No.
No, just people saying thanks, very useful explanation, and it is. I mean, I think visualizing, kind of drawing and visualizing your network is a really powerful tool, and you don't often actually, you kind of know who people are, but you don't actually put it down on a pad, as you said, on a bit of paper. So yeah, this is really helpful. Yes, a great visual. That's what people are saying. Yes, thank you.
I've got to be honest with you. You know, when I'm coaching execs and leaders, you know, like most coaches that do what I do, I have got hundreds of models and hundreds of anecdotes and lots of ways of thinking. I've got to be honest. You know, I think the feedback I get, this is probably one of the most powerful things that people tell me that they see, and that's why I want to share it and give it to you. So, you know, it's yours. Knock yourselves out. Use it. Okay, so our new remote living, and at the beginning, and I'm getting towards probably my last few slides now, Maggie. So I just wanted to give you the heads up on there, but I wanted to leave a bit of time for Q&A and a couple of things that I wanted to offer the women that are on the call today. So at the beginning of the session, I talked a bit about a bell curve, didn't I? About I think we've been on a bit of a curve from the beginning of this outbreak to where we are now. Well, obviously we're still in it. I was talking to Maggie about it just as we logged on. And if we think about that bell curve of the COVID remote living and us all, I mean, I'm sure, I mean, if you look at that woman there, I know I felt a bit like that and looked wistfully out the window quite a lot and thought about, you know, my future and the future of my clients and all of those I'm working with and helping. And when we all first went into this, and I was talking to the people around me, there was a lot of head holding, you know. There was a lot of head holding. There was a lot of, you know, rabbits in the headlights, startled bunny, call it what you like. And there was a lot, you know, there was a lot of fear and there was a lot of questioning about what we were going to do and how we were going to approach this. There was a lot of discussions. I'm sure you had a lot of discussions with your colleagues on your networks about how you were going to do it. And then as the curve went up, I think people got really comfortable. You know, and in terms of the questions and the conversations I were having, you know, people were saying, well, you know, some people were saying, well, I'm quite enjoying it. You know, from a human perspective, we've done what we needed to do in the business to get everyone safe, and you know, I feel okay, and people got quite comfortable, and I think because they knew they were locked in, they were locked down, they couldn't do anything else, and they just very much focused inwards on themselves. And hopefully when they were in that place, that's when they were doing the learning, that's when they were doing the thinking. And my experience of the people that I've been working with, and I'm sure that's the case for you, you know, that was what was going on in that period. Now, what I'm hearing now, and what I'm observing now, is people are getting a bit tetchy, and obviously here in the UK, and we've got an international audience here today. So you know, I'm not in Sweden, I'm not in Malaysia, and we're all at different points of where we've gone into this and coming out. But certainly here in the UK, we've just started to unlock, and people are starting to get a bit touchy because I think they know now, they've now got to those decisions they were making and that thinking they were having, that they now know they've got to start to put that into action. I'm observing there's a bit of fear coming into that now, you know, and it's around when do I do that? When do I unfurlough? When do I start that? When do I launch that new product? And I think what I would say to you is, we've talked a lot today about collaboration, about being the right type of leader, about being in touch with your charisma elements, not your ego elements. You know, don't fall into the trap of imposter syndrome that you've made the wrong decisions. But by engaging the people around you, include those internal and external, all we can do is to sense touch that and share that and decide together that that's the right decision. Collaboration. Obviously, people are looking to you for leadership. They're looking to you for decision making, but they're looking to you for something. But they're only going to know that if we have clarity of explanation of what that is. So I guess where I think I am is what I'm saying is now, it's certainly here in the UK, that is, we're now getting to that time and opening up the dialogue of saying, okay, this is what I think it is. This is what I think we need to do. And you'll do it, you know, but don't fall into the imposter trap. Have belief in yourself. You can only make a decision based on what you know then. And you know, I have a colleague that says, you know, you never make the wrong decision. You just make the decision at the time based on the best that you know. And if it doesn't go how you planned, it didn't go wrong. It was just a different situation. You know, we can beat ourselves up, but that's not going to help us, and that's certainly not going to help our people around us. They're looking to us to, you know, have that confidence and have that self-belief. We're not going to make all the right decisions, but we can, you know, all we can do is to engage as many people as we can and make the best decisions we can. So what have we learned about this new remote working? Well, there's no power in the old world. It's all in the new world, out of our comfort zone. That you know, we know we're not all going to go back to how it was. It's going to look different, and our narrative towards the people around us is so important that they hear that positively. Networking, the network is such an important discussion, and finding, developing that new stakeholder picture and use that model, you know, is absolutely a must. And the way we will be working with our teams we're somewhere in the middle now, you know, at that bell curve. The pendulum is swinging, and only dialogue with our teams will ensure we find the right place for, you know, for it to stop and us all get to that new normal. But don't worry if it feels frenetic. Don't worry if it feels white knuckle. Everybody is feeling like that, and you know, staying isolated and questioning yourself will not help. It's about moving forward. So I've tried to get to 45 minutes, Maggie.
You're spot on time, Karen.
I've been doing this a long time, Maggie.
Thank you so much. I've just put a comment in the chat box. If you've got any questions or anything that you would like to ask Karen, please share. Karen, I'm just going to go back to a couple of the comments and questions that that cropped up as you were speaking. Murtad, it's going back actually to the network. The network diagram. Nita was just asking about whether you would mix private networks within that for a business. Do you kind of recommend people mix and match, or kind of keep lives separate a little bit?
That's a great question, because sometimes, you know, say for example you were going from an operational position to a strategic leadership position, or maybe you were going from one type of business to another type of business. It's not just about the people who are around us professionally and commercially, is it? You know, people who are around us personally also sometimes will help us, or sometimes will hinder us. So what I say to people in that case, and what I've seen, I'll tell you what I've seen. Let's make it experience based. I've seen some people just do their diagram around their commercial network. I've seen some people do two and work them together and say, okay, this is my personal network, which is impacting on me. This is my professional network, which is impacting on me. And I've got an action plan for both of them. And I have seen them mixed, but very, very rarely. And, you know, mostly I've seen it used in a professional capacity. But what I would say to you is put it down, draw it up. If it's not working for you, if you try and mix it and it's not working for you, then split them. But it's you can choose. I purposely created that diagram so that it could be, that it came to light, or it came to life from you. Mm-hmm. So it works for you, because we're all different. We're all in different businesses. We're all at different stages of our careers. We're all in different countries. If I create a certain model, it's not going to fit all. So I deliberately made it loose.
Great. So Karen, I've got a couple more questions here that have come in. Susan and Leanne, I'm going to come back to your questions. And Sue, you had a question as well, but there was a couple of comments earlier in the session. Wendy made a comment around the fact that really everybody needs to be understanding and aware, like in the last couple of months, it's been a bit of a bubble and not really normal, and that there are kind of external influences. The normal external influences her lives have been removed. So it's an awareness that the working at home now isn't necessarily like what it's going to be in the future, as normal factors, I guess, come into play. I don't know. It's a very useful comment, Karen. I don't know if there's anything that you want to add to that, but around the fact that it hasn't really been normal.
No, it hasn't. And I think our on this bell curve, I think I think our minds have changed about a whole lot. When I came into the process, I had in my mind how it was going to be, how I was going to work from home. That's different now. I have a different perception of it. Yeah. Even to where I was going to sit, you know, and where I was going to base myself in my house, because I have an office in another town. I don't have a home office, which is why I'm sat in my sitting room. I've been everywhere in this house. And when I came into this process, I'm going to sit here. That hasn't happened. That room drove me crazy and just inhibited everything. It was awful. So yes, we're also decisions around things like real estate. When I was speaking to businesses at the beginning of the curve, I would hear things like, no, we're not having offices. We're all going to be working from home. This is working brilliantly. And now they're saying to me, we know we're not going back, but we think we're going to keep some of our offices and keep a core team in there. And we're going to be hot desking and have some people at home. And I think what's happened is the experience of us doing this in that bubble, as the questioner mentioned, has really taught us about what full-time home working is. And it's dictated not only to us personally, but as businesses about what we need to do. And we were very quick to make some early comments and remarks and decisions earlier on, which I think the experience of going through the process has changed us, and we've changed those decisions. Don't worry about that. That's just responding to our experience. It's not wrong to change your mind. You know, if we were wrong about something, we were wrong about it.
Well, I think, as you said earlier, it's kind of changing every hour and every minute. So that, you know, there's a lot. It's the external factors. And then we had a question from Sue, just saying, brilliant session. What do you suggest for people who are sole directors with no teams around them, but lots of networks and colleagues? Sue, do you maybe just want to come off mute and just explain the content, which part of the presentation that was related to? Was it network grid, or was it another part of the session?
No, it was about the whole session as such. I have a lot of networks. I've got a lot of contacts. I've got a lot of colleagues. What I don't have on a regular day-to-day basis is somebody around me to bounce stuff around. And I feel sometimes that I can bounce things to a certain extent with my colleagues, but we're all as busy as each other, and I don't really want to keep taking up their time with me and my challenges. So a lot of the time I'm talking to myself, which is not good.
Yeah, I totally appreciate that, Sue. And you know, when I first set up my business 10 years ago, I was in that place, and I remember sitting at that desk thinking, you know, I'm going to go bonkers if I don't speak to someone. You know, I'd come out of the corporate world. I was used to having everybody around me. It's a really, really difficult thing. And I think there's any amount of things you can do, and it's about finding the right one for you. It is about, you know, having those colleagues who are in similar businesses to you, or who are on your sort of level, who you can talk to now and again. I guess you can't be on the phone to them every day. I'm gonna come on to peer learning and something else in a moment. I've got a couple of more slides in terms of what I want to offer you all. But groups, entrepreneur groups, where you go and meet monthly or weekly, and there are any amount of them, where you can be in a situation and not only contribute but allow yourself to be helped, because sometimes we're on that foot where we're helping, and sometimes we're on that foot where we're receiving. And if we're just doing one, the balance isn't right. Obviously a coach or a mentor, there's any amount of things, but I would encourage you to do your network map. And
yes, I have to say, I thought that was an absolutely brilliant visual. I'm going to do that. I thought it was excellent.
Knock yourself out, Sue. Enjoy it.
Thank you. Okay, so I'm going to move on because we've got just a few minutes, and there's been a few different questions come in. But yeah, great question. And Sue, what it's things like mastermind groups and all sorts of things that you can access. You are legitimately able to kind of share. And then Susan has asked, she'd like to hear a bit more about the charisma index, and I have to admit that's what I wrote down for my question. Is like, any more info on the charisma index? It's maybe something that we should do a whole session on, but is there anything else that you can share?
Well, I developed one of the things I do when I'm coaching people is that I developed a questionnaire, which looks at those components that I shared, and when I'm developing someone's charisma index, it's a great gig. It's so brilliantly enlightening, and I always enjoy that part of work, and so do they. And essentially, it's about self-evaluation. But if you're going to do it and step in, it's also about others evaluating that. And it's about having a good set of people around you that can work with you on that project, who you trust, but obviously are confidential. Because it is a very, very sort of personal thing to talk about, heightening your charisma index. But if you can do that, I have worked with execs and seen execs get so much out of that, and change and develop as a result. It's not about changing the core of someone. You don't want to change the core of who you are, and you're going to be wired the same way, but it's about improving those things. So for example, you can do a whole piece of work on your listening capability and on your listening skill. People tell me all the time that they're great listeners, but actually when you delve into it, there's always things that we can be better at. So yeah, it's there's two things that always prick people's ears up when I speak, and it's ego and charisma, which is why I thought I'd share it.
Oh, thank you. Well, that's certainly a very interesting. I mean, I'd never thought about that you could increase your charisma before, but very interesting. Okay, so we've got a few more minutes, and I know there's a couple of things that you wanted to share at the end. So Leanne's asked, in your opinion, what is the golden nugget, kind of one action to complete every day?
Oh, every day?
Yeah, daily. Yeah, you got a top tip around that?
Well, if it's an everyday thing, we've all got a lot to do, haven't we? We've all got an A4 pad on our desks, I bet, that's full of actions. And so it's about really, I think the golden nugget is to really get to the nub of and understand what the real purpose of what's the real top thing that you must do to move you forward today. Because we sometimes we get overwhelmed, don't we? We look at everything we've got to do, and obviously we task avoid, we put off things because either we don't have that conversation because we don't like conflict, or we don't want to do that because it's not our comfort zone. But it's about really understanding every day what is that must do thing every day. Yeah. And that must do thing must move you forward, and must move you forward practically, but also feel good about yourself when you've done it.
Yeah, I think I'm one of those. I think I'm not going to be alone. I know I'm not alone in having a horrifically long to-do list. I always get some more stuff on it every day, quicker than I can score them off. We've got some really great comments about saying just how helpful this has been and so insightful. And Susan's made the point around this moment has completely accelerated, you know, the kind of experience of remote working, and it would never have happened in a different way. But we've got Mel has asked around whether you have noticed, or in any of the work that you've done, whether this whether you've found, and I'm assuming, Mel, you mean this moment, and whether introverted personalities, whether they have coped different to any of the people you know who are extroverts.
Oh, Maggie, I need a whole session for that. So as a practitioner of DISC, which is a profile instrument that allows me to see if you're introvert or extrovert, people or task orientated, all that means is you'll approach something differently. No, I think I've seen some introverts do well and feel okay with it and have problems, and I think I've seen some extroverts do well and be okay and have some problems with it. I think it depends on the environment, the business, the situation that is surrounding that person. People say to me all the time, do you have to be an extrovert to be a great leader? No. You have to be a great leader to be a great leader. And it doesn't matter if you're extrovert or introvert, or if you are task or your people, you can still be a great leader, but you will influence differently. So people orientated extrovert, I don't know, John F. Kennedy, to maybe a task orientated introvert, one of the, I don't know, one of the tech geeks, Zuckerberg. They're the opposite ends of the spectrum in terms of wiring and approach, but they're still successful because they found a way of influencing which work for them in terms of their own preferences and work for them in terms of the preferences of the people around them.
Amazing. Brilliant. Karen, thank you so much. I'm conscious of time, and I know that you've got just a couple of extra slides. Thank you, everybody. And we will include Karen's details in the follow-up notes, so that please feel free to get in touch. But Karen, please, do you want to run through the final couple of points that I know that you wanted to share with the group? And I hope we'll
a couple more things that they might be interested in. Okay.
Yes.
Okay, right. Oh, we've done that. So I'm recruiting, and it's something that came up actually in the Q&A, and I actually manage 2 peer groups for the Women Presidents Organisation, sometimes known as the WPO. This is a screenshot of our website, and I currently run the Birmingham group. We're developing the London group, and the WPO is a peer learning organisation, and our members are women who own their own businesses. So they are female entrepreneurs. If they don't own it outright, they might have half and half business partners. That's okay as well. And the eligibility is that they must be turning over more than $2 million in their businesses. In the UK, I translate that to £1 million. Okay, so I don't set that eligibility, the WPO set, and purely that is because the WPO is for second stage female entrepreneurs. It's not for startup entrepreneurs. We want to help those as well, but they have different challenges. So the WPO is a peer learning group. We meet once a month, and we have chapters all over the world. If you go onto our website, you'll see our objectives, and you can see there it's about sharing experiences, it's about educating the women, it's about collaboration. We have chapters, they call them chapters. We have chapters all over the world. I think there's about 160 chapters. I am the chair for the 2 UK chapters. As I say, I've got one in Birmingham and I've got one in London. But if you're any of those countries, do go onto the WPO website, because for example, I think someone joined from Malaysia. I do know the chapter chair over in Malaysia. What it means for me is my female entrepreneur network is global, and it's so fantastic through that WPO. So that's the first thing. I'm recruiting for those.
And I'll just say that WEConnect and WPO are linked together. We have a lot of linkages between the 2 organizations. So we've certainly had some of our network part of WPO and vice versa. So happy to kind of share this, and globally WEConnect works with WPO.
Absolutely. I know that we meet quite regularly, don't we, with those hats on, don't we, Maggie? And so that's the first thing. If you're interested in becoming a WPO member, you know, when Maggie sends my details out, so that's that. The other thing is, these are my own, whoops, sorry. These are my own, I just want to make sure I can, these are my own two businesses. Dunelm Business Consultants is my own business, which is 10 years old. When the lockdown hit, I contacted one of my colleagues and we started to talk about creating a program that helped businesses reset when they come out of COVID. And actually it's turned into something a whole completely much bigger than that. And as a result, as part of my movement within COVID, I've actually started another business called Experts for Entrepreneurs with three other women. They're all entrepreneurs. They all own their own business. We've got 4 pillars. One is finance, one is business improvement, one is sales and marketing, and my pillar that I look after is leadership and people, obviously. And the Reset program is our first program we're going to be launching in our business. So if you're looking to reset yourself and it's resonated with you today and you think I might help you personally, you might come to me through my own business, you know, through one of my exec programs. But if you're thinking about no, I think I need to do a program that looks at those 4 areas, then talk to me about that, and maybe we can talk about getting you a complimentary consultation to see if you'd be interested in joining our Reset program, which is about resetting you, resetting your sales, resetting your finance, resetting your people. You know, I'd be more than happy to talk to any of you about that if you are interested. So that's me, Maggie.
Thank you so much, Karen. We've had lots of lovely comments on the chat. I think this has been a very thought-provoking session. I'm going to say that. Lots of great advice and tips that we can all use, you know, whether we are, you know, kind of I'm going to say solo entrepreneurs, kind of working with ourselves, working kind of alone, but with a network of associates, as well as people who are running larger business with lots of employees and colleagues and global teams, and you know, even for us within the WeConnect community and our colleagues all around the world. But this has been great. Thank you so much, Karen, for sharing your insight. Thank you everybody for participating and for your questions and your comments. This has been great. We will get the recording shared in the next couple of days, along with, as I said, Karen's contact details. So if anything, you know, if you've got more questions, or if WPO, or indeed if these programs sound interesting, then please do get in touch with Karen. It's really important to be looking after ourselves and our businesses as we kind of go into whatever the next few months look like. And thank you to everybody who said, that WeConnect's been providing some useful resources. It's great to hear, and we very much appreciate the feedback. So if there's other things you want to look at, let us know. We've got more webinars, a couple more webinars coming up this month. But Karen, thank you. This has been great. Thank you, everybody. Have a really brilliant rest of your day, and I hope you're all now thinking how you're all going to be leading your businesses in this new normal that it's going to be coming our way in the next few weeks and months, and as we go forward. So
thank you, Maggie, and keep the faith, everybody. Keep the faith.
Yes, absolutely. And we will, with the support of each other. So absolutely, and keep smiling, everybody, and have a brilliant rest of your day.